You know, Jane Fonda is a little bit like Halley's Comet. You're vaguely aware that she's out there in the solar system somewhere floating around, but nobody really thinks about her very often. The last time she did anything of note was 1986. But you know she's there, and she's coming back around. And when she does, you better pay attention, because she's only going to enter the inner parts of our solar system every 75 to 79 years. Oh wait, that's where the analogy falls apart. But she is like Halley's Comet, and comets in general, because she is, of course, an icy body that warms and begins to release gases when passing close to the sun.
I don't have diseases.
Liberal actress Jane Fonda says white men. It's always white men. White men are to blame for the climate crisis. And is calling for them to all be arrested and jailed.
I am making a citizen's arrest!
Me.
Actress Jane Fonda is facing backlash after she called for men to face arrest and jail for the destruction done to the planet, as she blamed white men specifically for creating the climate crisis.
Fairy godparents!
It's a tragedy that we have to absolutely stop. We have to arrest and jail those men. They're all men behind this. Now, call me a cynic, but I sometimes wonder if the thrice divorced Jane Fonda, daughter of famous Hollywood actor and emotionally distant father Henry Fonda, I just wonder if perhaps she may have an axe to grind with white men.
My dad, Henry Fonda, of course, was an actor, but he never brought joy home. I never felt that he got joy. I believe that he did, actually, but it never manifested when he came home.
She added, there would be no climate crisis if there were no racism.
You're a twat.
She went on, white men are the things that matter, and then everything else is at the bottom. The outspoken actor said of the hierarchy that gives men power.
Oh well, too bad for you.
Pretty active even after they...
Well, you know, you can take anything, sexism, racism, misogyny, homophobia, whatever, the war, and if you really get into it and study it and learn about it and the history of it and everything's connected.
Is it though?
There'd be no climate crisis if it wasn't for racism.
Yes, science!
How do you get to that? Tell me.
Where would they put the Where would they put the poison and the pollution? They're not going to put it in Bel Air. They've got to find some place where poor people or indigenous people or people of color are living. Put it there. They can't fight back.
Isn't it amazing that there are some people who are born so rich and in so much of a bubble that they think that the pollution is just sent off to another country and dumped on the indigenous? Just some form of cruel and unusual punishment from the third world that over here in the West we have no idea about.
People can stop it.
Now, if you stepped outside of your gated community once in a while, you might notice there's a bit of pollution in Los Angeles. Fonda on Saturday called for those in positions of power to act quickly, as she says there is less than a decade to save the planet from the effects of climate change. This is serious. We've got about 7 or 8 years to cut ourselves in half of what we use of fossil fuels, and unfortunately, the people who have the least responsibility for it are hit the hardest, she said. Look, you can be as cynical as you like, but if there is anyone on Earth who knows what it takes to survive a mass extinction event, it's Jane Fonda. She's lived through the past 7 or 8 of them. And it's understandable that she doesn't want us digging up any more fossil fuels. She obviously sees it as a desecration of her ancestors' burial grounds.
Got him!
No.
Global South, people on islands, poor people of colour, not poor white people. They can take a hike. Literally. They love hiking, don't they, white people?
It's just that I got fired as a secretary.
It's good for us all to realise that there would be no climate crisis if there were no racism. There would be no climate crisis if there was no patriarchy.
I got fired as a secretary because I wouldn't sleep with my boss. That's true.
Oh, that is low. That is pathetic, even for you, Jane Fonda. Throwing your boss under the bus all these years later, now that he's not here to defend himself. I'd love to hear his version of events. She was a Unitarian, you see. I had good reason to believe that she was going to vote for that heretic John Quincy Adams. I ran a tight ship. In my office, we believed in the Holy Trinity.
I didn't know what else I could do, and I became friends with Susan Strasberg, the daughter of the famous acting coach Lee Strasberg, and she told me that I should try to do an interview with him and maybe he would accept me into his class. And I did, and he did. And then he told me I had talent.
A talent for what? Chinning balls?
I'll bet you could suck a golf ball through a garden hose.
Nobody had ever said that to me, so it was that kind of did it. Sure, I didn't think I would live past 30.
Yeah, 30 centuries, you fucking vampire.
People say, what is on your bucket list? You know, or what do you want to do? I don't know.
Probably find a suitable location for your 50 boxes of Earth, you Transylvanian shapeshifter.
I really don't know. I'm spending the next year and a half focused entirely on the climate crisis.
Job takes as long as you've got. If you want to save the world, give yourself a deadline. 18 months should do it, Jane.
And so I know one thing, that what I hope is that our president does what he promised on the campaign trail and really steps up to the plate, which he hasn't yet. And I hope that we can all be brave enough to do what it takes to turn it around before catastrophe.
Look, idiots, plebs, you don't understand. We can't just go on living like we are living now. You can't have a $6 million townhouse in Los Angeles, a $13 million mansion in Beverly Hills, another beach home in Santa Monica, a 23,000 acre ranch in New Mexico. You're just going to have to do what it takes. You're going to have to give up some of those luxuries, right? You've got hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank, and there are people in shithole countries, I don't know, somewhere in the southern part of the globe, and they're stuck in traffic jams on their way to 9-to-5 jobs, and there's pollution and stuff. Got no idea how bad it is.
That's my hope. It's really my only focus right now. I mean, the world is being threatened.
For the next year and a half, the world, we have the privilege of having Jane Fonda's almost undivided attention. She's pretty much that's the only thing she's focusing on, right? She's, you know, there's a few other projects and stuff, but mainly she wants to save the world because it's about to end, you know, for the next 18 months. You know, if she doesn't finish that in 18 months, she's got other irons in the fire, you know, other fatter fish to fry. But for the time being, you know, we better take full advantage of Jane Fonda's bloody dedication, because she really, really doesn't want the world to end, all right?
Nature, the oceans, the forests, air, the water, human life is being threatened.
Yeah, that's right. So, you know what? Eat your bugs, you bastard plebs. Eat them!
And it's not just that I have grandkids, but I love this planet. I love people, and I love animals and birds and fish.
Birds and fish are animals. You covered that with animals, but I mean, that's neither here nor there. Do you really love fish? Nobody really loves fish. Only like academically, like somebody loves history. I have a bond with a fish. I struggle to believe people have bonds with anything other than dogs and cats. Birds, maybe sometimes. My wife and daughter love horses. I don't get that. To me, they're like fish. Massive, powerful, 500 kilo land fish with PTSD.
Birds and fish and whales and reindeer and polar bears and...
Look, Jane, I'm sure you can name a lot of animals, but your daddy wasn't impressed when you were 3, and he sure as hell isn't now because he's dead. But I draw the line at polar bears. You cannot love polar bears. I've watched enough Joe Rogan to know they are killing machines. They hunt humans. The only reason you would survive in the presence of a polar bear, the only reason one wouldn't rip you to shreds, the only reason a polar bear would leave you be, Jane Fonda, is the same reason the rest of us leave you be. 'Cause you're irrelevant. Just doesn't give a shit that you're there.
I just want to do everything I can to make sure that there's a future that we would want to live in.
For the next year and a half.
And that the other creatures will also be with us there, because it's all interconnected. And
even white men, Jane? Are they invited to Fonda's Ark? There will be polar bears and reindeers and fish and armadillos and zebus and chamois, round hogs, rattlesnakes, the blue-footed boobies, the poor people of color, of course, stink bugs.
when I'm not active fighting the climate crisis. I get really depressed.
My God, Jane Fonda's life really has just been one long search for definition, hasn't it? Please tell me I'm good. Jane, you're fine. Calm down. I'm not going to eat any bugs. Fuck off. As for the rest of it, you're fine. Enjoy what time you've got left.
Because I read the science and I know what's happening, and it's urgent, and could become catastrophic, and so it's just inconceivable to me to not do everything that I can.
I'm sorry to be quite literally an armchair psychologist, but yeah, she's just a rich girl who didn't have the guidance and didn't have the people telling her that she was fine as she was, and she's just been searching her entire life for some greater cause, for something to make her feel like she's worthy. Her 3 husbands couldn't do it, her dad didn't, her mother certainly didn't, unfortunately. I feel sorry for people like this, but God, take a day off. You're nearly 90. Shut up. Nobody cares, Jane. We're going to hell in a handbasket, and we don't fucking care. All right? No amount of polar bears balancing on icebergs is going to change my fucking mind, all right? I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm pretty glad I won 2 Oscars. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't, because it really helps. It does. It does. You know, when you're being introduced and someone says 2 Oscars, the audience tends to pay more attention, I think. I don't know. So, you know, I'm proud that I've done work that my fellow thespians felt merited my receiving an Oscar twice, and I'm proud of my activism. I'm also proud that my family is pretty good and healthy and good values and decent people.
I can take people who are vacuous and inane and a bit simple because they're rich and they're famous, and I don't have a problem with that, and I do feel a bit sorry for Jane, you know, because she's awfully stupid. She's awfully stupid. But don't lecture us. Don't lecture us, middle class and lower class people. You fucking entitled. She's got $200 million. She's worth $200 million. Have you seen her houses? Shut up. No one is going to take you seriously. The only people that will take Jane Fonda seriously are airheads and narcissists, and none of those people are going to do any good for society. And that's my 2 cents. I've done something good for society today, haven't I, by making this video? I sure have. I sure have, Jane. I don't need people to validate me. Like, share, subscribe, leave your comments under the video. I'll see you in the next one.